Happy New Year, guys! Welcome to another video. I am currently trying to catch up with a few of my wrap-up videos from last year, 2021. I was quite busy in the last quarter of the year, so I still have a few videos to catch up on in terms of wrap-up. So in today's video, as you already know from the title, I will be going over all my October watches. Without further ado, let's get straight onto this video. So in the month of October, I managed to watch 5 short films, 3 TV shows, and 1 feature film. I just didn't have time to read or watch any movies, but it makes total sense why I didn't watch movies, because I freaking binge TV shows. I'm gonna start with the 5 short films that I watched in the month of October. I'm a little bit disappointed because I was gonna watch more horror movies in the month of October because it was Halloween season, or like Halloween month, so I was gonna like binge a few horror movies that I was saving for the October period. Unfortunately, life happened and I just couldn't get around to watching all of those. The first short film that I watched was called Amber. This short film actually came out in 2021. It's a 10-minute short. It's basically set in a barber shop. It's like any other day. This barber is, you know, opening up shop, ready for his first customer, and along comes this man into the shop ready to get his beard shaved, and he soon realizes that this customer is a kidnapper, a child kidnapper. It kind of escalates. It's kind of got like a Hitchcock thriller vibe to it, but at the same time it's very pastel and bright, and it kind of throws you off. The way it kind of built that suspense was pretty good. It kind of gave you little like pockets of information where you kind of realize yourself that this is not the ideal situation. Overall, I ended up giving it 3 stars out of 5. I thought that it was filmed very beautifully, but at the same time there was nothing too, how should I say, surprising or unique about it. I liked it, but I didn't love it. This is directed by Faisal Hashmi. It basically only has 2 actors in it. It was intense, but also very aesthetically pleasing. Oh my gosh, the next short that I watched is the most heartbreaking thing that I've seen all year. It's literally a 5-minute short, and I got so torn and it affected me emotionally. Anyway, the short film is called 8328 and it's directed by Marc-Andrea Girard. The short basically starts off with this old man coming up to the door. It's Christmas. Well, it's alluded to that it's Christmas. This old man is basically just trying to sell little trinkets and toys door by door. At this particular door, he encounters this little boy, and it's basically a little interaction between the two. At first, it's kind of like heartwarming and a bit humorous, but you then realize that there's something a lot more darker and just heartbreaking within this one interaction scene. I think it's one of my most favorite short films that I have seen in the last decade. Not that I watch a lot of short films, but this is like, it was impactful, emotionally impactful, and just the subtle hints of certain things this film alludes to, so beautiful the way it's executed. And I just thought it was just so heartbreaking, and I think about it till this day. Even though I watched it a few months ago, it definitely had a lasting effect. This one was released in 2018. I loved it. I gave it a 4 stars out of 5. I would highly recommend it if you come across this short film. The next short film is called Las Palmas. This one was released in 2011 and it is directed by Johannes Nahom. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong and butchered that name, so sorry. But this is actually such a creative and humorous short film. It's basically like puppetry. The whole film is full of puppets, and the only real person in it is this baby. It's just a humorous satire and commentary on tourists, just the outrageous way tourists behave. It's just hilarious, and the puppetry is just so creative. And I also ended up rating this short 4 out of 5 stars. I loved it just for the sheer craftsmanship of like the puppets and just the humor of it. It was just so cute and just so weird. And I loved it. It's a funny short film. It only goes for like 14 minutes. It was just so cute but funny, but also made you think about how tourists act. Like when you go on a holiday and you see some of these tourists and you're like, oh my gosh, yes, I totally have seen this before. It's just a fun time. Totally recommend it if you just happen to come across it. Just the best. Okay, so the next short film that I watched was called Curve. This was released back in 2016 and it's directed by Tim Egan. This short is basically a thriller. It's only got one actor in it and she basically wakes up on like this cement curve. Below her is like an oblivion nothingness. So basically this chick is just stuck on this cement curve and if she slips she's gonna fall to her death. It's very intense, very suspenseful, totally gripping. The whole time you're like very stressed out and you'll have to see what happens. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. It's probably not my favorite short that I've ever seen in my life. In terms of suspense, it was very well captured. Like the way it was portrayed, it made you feel very tense. I think that it was a cool concept for a short film and it was executed well as a thriller. I feel like most of these shorts you can probably watch it on Vimeo, but I'm sure you can find it somewhere on the internet. So the last short film that I watched for the month of October was called Monster and this is directed by Jennifer Kent. This is the same director as The Babadook, which is a film that I've always wanted to watch, but a few of my friends who've watched it say that it's really scary, so it's always kind of frightened me, even though I do watch horror and I probably won't be as scared once I watch it, but in my head I've like hyped it up to be this really scary thing. So yes, I have yet to watch The Babadook, but I ended up watching Monster, which was the short film that eventually got made into a feature, The Babadook. So I basically watched it, so I should be able to handle The Babadook. Maybe in 2022 is the year that I will watch The Babadook. This film is shot in like completely black and white. I thought it was very stylistic and it kind of had a very kind of, what's the word? Kind of whimsical vibe to it, although it was a horror. I do know that The Babadook kind of deals with grief and so the monster is a manifestation of grief, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if this is the similar concept, but while I was watching this short film, there was something a bit wrong with the mother. Like not wrong with the mother, but like she seemed a bit distant with her child, and so when the monster is kind of revealed, it is a very cool effect. I feel like it was either costume or a bit of puppetry, but I did really like the effect. It wasn't like super scary or anything, but I liked the tension, the underlying subtle tension throughout the short film. This was released back in 2005, so quite a while ago. Basically on Letterboxd, a synopsis says, a mother battles with her son's fear of a monster lurking in the closet, but soon discovers a sinister presence all around her. Definitely has a noir feel to it. Maybe it's because it's just filmed in black and white and there's a lot of shadowing and whatnot. There's something a little bit creepy and uneasy about it. After watching Monster, maybe I can handle The Babadook and maybe I will watch The Babadook in 2022. We shall see. I ended up giving Monster 3.5 stars out of 5. I enjoyed it and it's got me intrigued to watch the feature film now. So we're gonna move on to the 3 TV shows that I watch. Well, I should say streaming shows instead of TV shows now. But anyway, the 3 shows that I ended up finishing in the month of October was firstly My Name, which is a South Korean kind of action revenge thriller drama show. It was released in 2021 and it's directed by Kim Ji-min. Basically it follows our main protagonist Chi-woo. She's the daughter of like a gangster and one day her father goes missing. She's a bit alienated at a school, picked on, which boggles my mind because why would you pick on like a gangster boss's daughter? Whatever. Anyway, basically one thing leads to another. Her dad dies. Not a huge spoiler, it happens in episode 1 and that is what triggers her into this revenge quest. It's a bit of an infernal affair situation because she wants to enact revenge for her father's death and she wants to, you know, take down this mysterious figure that killed her dad. She ends up kind of joining the gang that her dad was working under, and then at the same time she then trains to become a police officer in order to infiltrate the police department to track down who actually killed her dad. It was a really cool concept. It's usually a concept that I really like. I love revenge quests. I love like Asian gangster movies, and so it was everything that I wanted. Although I feel like a lot of Korean shows get a little bit cheesy towards the end, a little bit more predictable. It is actually very predictable towards the end. I think the action was pretty good, but otherwise it was a little bit of a letdown for me. Overall, I ended up giving this show 3 stars out of 5. It had all the buzzwords that I personally enjoy in a story narrative, but I think the execution was done a little bit poorly. I think a lot of the character motivations and all that was not handled very well, and some of the stuff that happens just didn't make sense, and of course, like I mentioned, very predictable. So I'm a little bit disappointed. But the action scenes are really cool. I'm glad I watched it, and I think the main actress is like really cool. I think she like trained really hard to do a lot of the stunts, and you can see it. Totally cool, kick-ass main character. Next show I ended up finishing finally was Good Girls. I ended up catching up with season 4. Pretty sure it hasn't been picked up for season 5 yet. I honestly have lost a little bit of interest in Good Girls. I think season 1 was solid and I found it so entertaining. It's kind of like a comedy drama. It's following these 4 like housewives who are in a bit of like financial debt. They're kind of struggling financially. In order to get quick money, they end up robbing a grocery store. They're successful at it. However, the grocery store that they ended up robbing is connected to like gang money, and so it kind of brings these 4 women into a situation that they were totally not expecting to be sucked into. Craziness ensues. It's kind of like a more comical female-led Breaking Bad, but it doesn't go as dark as Breaking Bad. I did actually really like season 1 of Good Girls, but I think overall the season that I ended up watching and finishing binging this month, well, in the month of October, wasn't the best season. I think as the series progressed, it kind of got more and more, let's just say, worse. It might actually be my least favorite season. There's a reason why it's not being greenlit for a 5th season, let's just say. I would give season 4 of Good Girls maybe 2.5 stars out of 5. It's kind of just average. The situation these women get up to is just hilarious, and so I think it's an okay show. The last TV show I ended up finishing in the month of October was Midnight Mass. This is totally under the horror category. It came out this year. It's directed by Mike Flanagan. I think the way this show started was so like my style. It's like set in an isolated village on an island. It's a creature feature. There's a lot of mystery and horror elements to it. There is sort of this religious undertone to it that's a bit cultish, and it just has this sort of unsettling, creepy feel. It's very slow paced. I reckon the way the mystery unfolds is very slow. It definitely reminds me of a Stephen King story, even though this is an original concept from Mike Flanagan. I shouldn't say I really enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed the first half of the TV show. The way it ended was a little bit, dare I say, pretentious. I wasn't that impressed with how the show ended, but I think in terms of it being a creature feature, totally enjoyed it. It definitely had characters you absolutely despise, and the stakes were high on this island because help was not near once things went down. It was a good October watch is what I should say. Because of the lack of horror movies that I watch, I think this kind of made up for it. The show, I got all the spooky feels from this show. Even though this show is kind of marketed as like a horror, it does have a very melancholic underlying factor to the narrative. It has like a very depressing undertone. It's creepy, but it's also sad. Even though I didn't really like how it ended, I think the concept was really cool and I really enjoyed it. Even though I said creature feature, I won't reveal what sort of creature is in it, but I really liked that aspect of the show. I think the way that it was trying to be very philosophical kind of ruined it for me. I just wanted it to be a little bit less, let's just say, philosophical. But I did like the depressing kind of undertone to the story, but I think it could have been done in a way that was less pretentious, like I said. I ended up giving Midnight Mass 3.5 stars out of 5. If you do like Mike Flanagan TV shows like he did The Haunting of Hill House and Blythe Manor, 2 shows that I have not watched. I've heard Haunting of Hill House is really good. I honestly think Midnight Mass is more my style of horror. Maybe it's because I like creature features instead of ghost stories. Like, I'd rather watch something with a creature in it. That's why Midnight Mass kind of appealed to me more, and I heard a lot of good things about it. Although, as well done as it was, like building up the tension tension and the mystery and all that, I feel like the way it was executed at the end was a bit of a letdown, and so that's why the star rating is a little bit more lower than what I hoped for. But I would still recommend the show if you want something a little bit more creepy. There we go, Midnight Mass, recommended. That was it. Those were the shows that I watched in the month of October. We're gonna move on to the last thing that I watched in the month of October, which was just one feature film. And can you guess what it is? Actually, you probably won't guess, it's been a while. But I ended up watching Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings. This came out in 2021 and it was directed by Destin Daniel Cretton. It was all the rage for a while there. It's funny because I feel like Shang-Chi got so much praise online from who I follow, but it's funny how like people I know who are Asian weren't very impressed when they watched it. They were a little bit disappointed by it, and I kind of agree somewhat. I did actually enjoy Shang-Chi. I thought it was a really entertaining Marvel movie, and I mean, come on, we've got our first Asian lead superhero in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is like totally groundbreaking, and I feel empowered and I'm so like yes about it. But at the same time, I do kind of agree with the reasons why they weren't that impressed with it. I think they could have done better with Shang-Chi. I think what Marvel did with Shang-Chi was it kind of inserted all like the things that you already stereotypically like about Asian films and then put it in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, glossed it over with that Disney budget. On the surface, people would like it. I think it had amazing action sequences, but I think it did a lot of like Asian stereotypical things. I think like the character motivations were a bit forced. The main villain, like he was so good. He kind of outshined Shang-Chi in my opinion. However, the villain arc, the reasoning for his villainy in the end was a little bit stupid. I don't know. I think it was a little bit silly overall, but visually it was very like exciting to see like a full Asian cast in a Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, come on, like how long has it taken for them to, you know, have an Asian main character? That was quite an amazing thing to see on the big screen, and so I did really enjoy it, but at the same time I kind of think they did Shang-Chi dirty. Like I think it could have been done a little bit better in terms of the plot and the story. The acting was really good. I think a lot of ideas were really good, and I think more than anything, I think the action sequences were really cool. But something about it just, I didn't love it, if you know what I mean. I liked it, but I didn't love it. Marvel needs to do a little bit more for like their POC characters, in my opinion. I am constantly getting disappointed by Marvel movies at the moment. It's like they could go the extra mile, but they decide to go safe. They always go safe where it is entertaining and it is fun to watch, but it doesn't inspire me. And I feel bad saying this because there's a lot of Marvel fans out there, but it's true. I'm kind of getting superhero fatigue and I need them to do something new and exciting. The two main Marvel properties that I really enjoyed were WandaVision and Loki, which weren't even like feature films. They were like the TV shows on Disney Plus, which I feel like they need to do something a bit more crazy and wacky and just out of the box like those two shows. Yeah, I think like the feature films really need to pick up their game and do something very high energy and wacky and weird for me to like get on board with them again. I am actually really excited for the second Doctor Strange movie. I like the mystical side of Marvel, and if they explore that element really well, I think I'm gonna be really excited, and hopefully I will have a fun time when it comes to that movie. But just gonna say it now, Shang-Chi, I liked it. I liked the fact that we finally have an Asian main character in a Marvel superhero movie. It was a fun time, but I will say I'm not entirely over the moon about it either. I think Marvel can do better. I ended up giving Shang-Chi 3.5 stars out of 5. So that was it, guys. Those are my thoughts for all the movies and shows that I watched in the month of October. Do you guys agree or disagree with my thoughts and feels on some of these movies and shows? What have you guys been watching recently that you would recommend me? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, I hope you guys are all staying safe and sound, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!